Yo, welcome to the show. I am imminent father Gunnar Olson, here with a guy who may have to do this episode on his own at a moment's notice. It's Kyle Potter.
I want you to have a child. I don't want to do this on your own. Please come back.
What is your plan if I have to get up in the middle of this show and head to the hospital right now to have my first child?
There is no plan, Gunnar. There's never a plan. We just wing it. We wing everything here at Thrifty Traveler. How do you not know this after 4 years here?
I would love to hear the 25-minute monologue you put together trying to fill time when I abruptly leave the studio.
I don't even think my wife would listen to that.
I'd listen to it. I have to kill some time in the delivery room. All right, Cal, to get started today, I need to find something out. And that's about summer travel season, which is really just days away at this point. People are starting to gear up their travels or maybe are hunting for a last minute flight deal or something to put a trip together. But do you have any tips for travelers to help make this kind of busier summer travel season a little easier?
I mean, when I think about summer travel, I think about just how hectic airports can get because the summer is typically always, with the exception of the holidays, the busiest travel season of the year. And as much as the launch of Real ID starting in early May was a little bit of a joke, enforcement is a term that apparently the federal government is using in air quotations. I still wonder if it's only a matter of time before they get serious about this. And if they start to get serious about requiring a Real ID at security checkpoints in the months to come, you might as well get one anyway if you don't have one, or more importantly, make sure you have your passport with you because that works as a Real ID at security. A global entry card, a passport card, even. Just really start to plan for the summer because the last thing that you want when airports are busy is to get held up or just to have problems in an already hectic environment. So that's the first one. And the other thing is, I know nobody likes, well, some of us may like to have a 4 a.m. wake up call and get to the airport for the first flight of the morning, but it's worth it because if you're worried about delays and cancellations, the data is very clear. The single best decision that you can make is take the earliest flight possible because the longer the day goes on, the more likely that delays are going to start to stack up. The plane that you're flying from Minneapolis to Chicago might be coming in from Denver earlier that day. And if that flight is delayed, all of a sudden you're delayed too. So if you have that first flight of the day, that sets you up to get to where you need to go on time as best as you possibly can. What about you?
Yeah, I actually have a similar tip, and that's just get up in the morning, do things in the morning, just when you're traveling in general. Life is just a little easier in the mornings, crowds are lighter. Some of the best travel experiences in my life came from getting up at the crack of dawn and going to do things in the morning. And, you're going to be able to, get better guides and tours at that time of day as well. And just, you're not dealing with kind of the frenzy of mid-morning rush at all these things. Get up and do something that you really want to do where crowds are going to be there super early in the morning. It also starts your day a lot earlier, so you can end your day a lot earlier. I love going to bed early, Kyle. It's one of my favorite things ever, even when I'm traveling. But you get an earlier dinner reservation, so you could eat at some of the nicer places. Go get in there at 5 o'clock and hit the hay by about 9:30.
You're going to get some really weird looks in Spain with this strategy, but it's going to pay off in the long run.
I get weird looks almost everywhere with this strategy, but I'm knocking on the door at 5:05 looking to get dinner sometimes when I'm traveling. I love.
Could you have stopped that sentence at "I get weird looks everywhere"?
I could have, yeah. It's partially the hair, partially just my general demeanor, but I get good looks. I get weird looks everywhere I go. My second tip for summer travelers is aim for August, especially if you don't have anything booked yet. The best deals are going to come in August. You still get that great summer weather. You don't have those like peak summer crowds, and most importantly, those peak summer prices on everything else. The best Europe flight deals are going to be for August, with the exception of business class. Actually, the best business class deals, especially with points and miles, are usually going to be in those June, July ranges, which is a surprising trend, but it makes sense considering business travelers are typically not on the road during those months anyway. But those are all the tips I got. Anything else come to mind for travelers?
No, the August window is just so clutch if you want to get a better deal on flights, especially to Europe, but I would say anywhere. There's definitely a dividing line between kind of the early to mid-August where you start to see a lot more of the peak prices in early to mid-August and obviously June and July as well. But once you hit that, somewhere between August 7th and 10th, maybe the 15th in some destinations. After that, that's when we tend to see the best prices. This summer is a little bit different. I feel like there's been better prices across the whole of the summer than we've seen in certainly 3 or 4 years, maybe even more than that. But regardless, that mid to late August window is just so great for finding better deals on flights, no matter where you're going.
Yeah, I just love that one last getaway too. It's always fun. Today on the show, we're going to look at a surprising new route announcement from Asian carrier Starlux Airlines, and we're going to wave goodbye to the Southwest that we knew and loved. And in our featured segment called The Extra Mile, Kyle's going to show us exactly how to book a trip to England and Scotland using points and miles. All that and more. Welcome back to the Thrifty Traveler podcast. All right, let's jump into something hot and something cold. It's a bit of good travel news and a bit of bad travel news from the last week. And we're going to start with something hot. Kyle, how many U.S. cities can you name where you expected Starlux to add nonstop flights before you got to Phoenix?
Probably a dozen or close to it. I mean, this really did kind of come out of nowhere. So set this up for us, Gunnar. What is the news? Why is it big news? And then we'll get into why on earth is a Taiwanese luxury airline flying to, of all places, Phoenix, Arizona, nonstop.
Yeah, so last week, the mayor of Phoenix and Starlux jointly announced a new nonstop service to Taipei beginning in 2026. They just said early 2026. We don't know any more than that. But it's the first ever Asian nonstop for the Phoenix airport. And like you said, Kyle, a massive head scratcher kind of until it wasn't, right?
Right. I mean, we were kind of racking our brains when this news came out, which came out from Ishrion Aviation, I think was the first, big aviation news source to spot this, which again, that was one of our must follows in one of our previous episodes. Can't stress enough. If you want to know about airline news, Ishrion is just so, so good at getting this news and seeing things before anybody else. But anyway, we were kind of talking in the office here, like, why Phoenix? I mean, is there business travel? Is there just so much travel demand to not just Taiwan, but connections into mainland China and throughout Southeast Asia? Taipei is a really good airport for connections. There's a reason why there are not just Starlux, but EVA and China Airlines fly a lot of nonstops to and from the U.S. But EVA and China Airlines fly to Chicago and New York City and a handful of other cities, and none of them fly to Phoenix. So what's going on here? And then we see the obvious reason, which is, even the mayor from Phoenix noted that there is a new semiconductor facility being built in Phoenix. And this company from Taiwan is pouring in $165 billion into Phoenix, which means that they've got to get people back and forth from Phoenix to Taiwan and vice versa. And this is the thing, there are a lot of reasons why airlines may decide to start a new route just because they can see the travel demand is there. They know that tourism is hot, whatever. But the biggest reason is that business travel dictates everything. And if you can see on paper, if you can talk to a company and know that they're going to have a lot of employees that are going to be on this route and they're going to be paying either, $5,000 or more round trip for a business class fare, or they're going to be booking last minute tickets, 7, 5, 3, 1 days in advance that are going to cost thousands of dollars every single time. That makes it really, really easy for airlines to justify starting these new routes.
Yeah, if you're going to put $165 billion into a market, you should probably chase it with a nonstop flight. They would have sent that flight to Wichita if they threw that money at the city of Wichita. That's an insane amount of money. I do wonder how much business class award availability we'll find on that route, just because there's going to be so much demand, we think, especially in kind of the business travel sector. But we'll see. It's Phoenix, right? It's not a place where people are routinely looking for business class award availability either. So who knows? We might be surprised and find something good there. I would definitely say over the next couple of days, keep your eye out. If it hasn't hit your inbox already, we'll definitely be keeping an eye out, because once they launch flights, that's usually the best time to find brand new award availability, especially in the front cabins.
Yeah, I imagine it'll run hot and cold based on, this Taiwanese company's work schedule and when they need to send employees back and forth. And, if it's a little bit lumpy and there are peaks and valleys in how often the airline is filling these business class cabins with employees, everyday travelers might luck out and get it while the getting's good. And if that's the case, right now being able to book those flights, we believe it would be 75,000 Alaska miles each way, because that's what Starlux is charging from its existing gateways like Seattle, San Francisco, and LA. I see no reason why Phoenix, if and when these flights actually do go on sale, which is still at this point is a big question mark. But like Gunnar said, I mean, we're going to be looking really, really closely. And I feel fairly optimistic, let's say. If I'm wrong, feel free to call me out later. But I feel fairly optimistic that this might be an opportunity that's a little bit better to get, that long 15-hour flight on a really good airline, which personally I'm really anxious to try out. And I think Phoenix might be the best bet.
Yeah, for sure. Super exciting. That's why it's definitely something hot for this week. But we got to get to something cold, and that is, sadly, Kyle, pour one out. This week, the old Southwest officially died. On May 27th, Southwest sold its last Wanna Get Away fares, those really popular, flexible fares that came with 2 free check bags. It's the last thing that made the airline really unique. And now we are seeing Southwest basic fares. Womp womp. A regular old basic economy fare comes with next to nothing, and now almost every major airline in the U.S. is exactly the same. Kyle, you can tell by the tone of my voice how I feel. How do you feel about Southwest and its future now?
I'm a little bit torn about it because on the one hand, Southwest has never really been that appealing to me personally because unlike you, I'm not a huge skier. I don't need those 2 free check bags everywhere I go, and that has really always been the value proposition of Southwest, that they don't nickel and dime you. You get 2 free bags with every fare. It made a lot of sense, even though at face value, Southwest might be charging the same or more as other carriers. At the same time, I think we heard pretty much in unison from avid Southwest flyers when this news came out a couple of months ago. The question, why on earth would I book Southwest now? And I think that's a very valid question. And now that these changes have actually taken effect, I think we're going to probably start to see it in the numbers that unless if Southwest really gets competitive on price by undercutting every single major airline in the country on price, why are people going to be booking Southwest? And I think above all, kind of zooming out and looking bigger picture at the airline industry, I think the most successful airlines in the world all have a story. Delta is, the airline that is on time and it takes care of you. United is an up and comer that is really trying to challenge Delta. Emirates is all about luxury. You go down the list. And Southwest's story for decades was, we take care of you. We're not going to nickel and dime you. We don't do stuff like the other airlines that you really loathe. And Southwest does not have that story anymore. So what is Southwest's story? I don't know that they're going to have one.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I know people in my life who don't like flying Southwest because the uncertainty of no seat assignment at all. So maybe there's a crack in the door for those people, but without the free check bags, it's just like every other airline. Like if you throw a Southwest fare up against a Delta fare on the same route on the same day, and they're within $10-15 of each other, I'm going with Delta because it's more reliable and some in-flight entertainment and free Wi-Fi. And it's like all of a sudden everything that makes Southwest unique is gone. And when you compare those fares apples to apples and Google Flights, there's just not a lot of reasons for me to pull the trigger unless they're the only option, right? So tough one. I'm curious about their future. I wonder if their business will start to perform a little better, or at least up to their shareholders' expectations. But I'm going to miss the old way. I'm going to miss the old Southwest, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to when Southwest comes out with earnings next. Not because I'm a financial expert of any kind. I'm not. I can barely add or subtract. But, the last day of selling Want to Get Away fares with 2 free check bags is May 27th, Tuesday. May 28th, that changes. You don't get any of that. But if you book for travelers out there who booked before that date change, you still get 2 free check bags. So I'm wondering if we're going to get, into the summer and Southwest starts talking about how, April, May, and June went for them. We might see that May 27th was the single biggest day of ticket sales in Southwest history. And it probably should be because, Southwest is a good airline. They run a good show there. People enjoy flying Southwest. And for people who really do like flying Southwest, I bet there are a lot of people out there who rush to get in the doors before everything changed.
Yeah, it should be a really interesting day at Southwest Revenue Management, that's for sure. All right, we have a lot more to cover, including Kyle's points and miles bookings to England and Scotland that we're very excited to talk about. But first, we're going to take a quick break. All right, I like to say there are no true experts in travel, and that's because whatever you learn this month could be obsolete the next. Things change fast in this world, so you can get an edge in budget travel or points and miles by staying current. And that's why I wanted to tell you about our Daily Beat newsletter. It's a quick email sent to your inbox every morning, and it'll give you all the new information and tools you need to travel for less. Kyle, what should travelers expect from the Daily Beat?
Well, first of all, they should expect it in their inboxes every morning, Tuesday through Saturday, when we round up the last day's news in travel, flight deals, travel rewards, credit cards, loyalty, hotels, whatever, and send it straight to your inbox. You're going to see stories from Gunnar and I, whether you want them or not. But more importantly, you'll see some stories from some of the other awesome members of our team. Jackson and Nick, two of the best people at covering the credit card landscape. Long, who is doing a killer job writing about hotels as well as finding hotel deals, as well as even the occasional appearance from our own Peter Thornton, who, now is spending most of his time deep in the bowels of award space finding award deals, but also has written some really, really awesome in-depth guides to actually booking award tickets.
Yeah, you're going to want to hear from all those experts. So head to thriftytraveler.com/dailybeat, all one word, to sign up today. All right, back to the show. All right, let's go to the extra mile, where we dig a little deeper onto something in the world of travel. And this week, Kyle's taking us to Europe. Where are we going, Kyle?
You're coming. You're coming to Europe with me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were planning a group trip for you, me, and Jackson, our producer, today. That's not what's happening. Okay, back to the drawing board. Kyle, what is happening today? Where you just booked a trip. Where did this idea come from? Tell us about the trip.
Yeah, so, I touched on this in a previous episode, but we're going to dive a little deeper as we do here in the extra mile. My wife and I are going to England and Scotland late this summer. And this, didn't come out of nowhere. In fact, my wife and I have been talking about this for as long as we've known each other, which is almost 12 years. My wife studied abroad during college in England. And, since we've met, it's one of the things that she talks about the most. It's just really just a precious experience for her. And so we've always talked about wanting to do this. And we've traveled a ton together. We actually had a trip to England to fly into London to go to the college where she studied and go to that town and explore Scotland a little bit. And we were scheduled to depart in August of 2020. And I think we can all guess what happened to that particular trip. That one did not happen. We did not fly to London in late August of 2020. And the thing is, we've spent the last few years doing exactly what we tell everybody to do, which is to follow the deal. And we've taken some incredible trips by following that deal, but that has meant that the deal hasn't brought us to England until it finally did. And I'm really, really excited that we're finally making this happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I assume that to book this trip, you followed the deal once again. Can you take us exactly through how you found the deal, what you used, and how you booked this thing? So if people who are listening wanted to replicate it or maybe even do something better, they could.
I mean, you can certainly do better. This all started on October 30th, 2024. Which may not go down in infamy exactly, but I think it's going to go down in TT lore because this was a huge day. So Virgin Atlantic had been warning for months leading up to this that effective October 30th, they were going to change over to a dynamic award pricing system for their flying club program. And dynamic award pricing, it has its ups and downs. We talk about that a lot when it comes to Delta SkyMiles, but it tends to be a dirty word. And so I think we were all bracing for the absolute worst. And in fact, I don't think really anyone on the team was really primed to look at this and say, all right, we got to look first thing in the morning because we know there's going to be something great here. I think we were all just expecting higher award rates, whether you're flying economy or business class or whatever. And then we get a message from Jackson on our team who says, hey guys, I think this flight, this business class flight from Boston to Heathrow actually got a little bit cheaper. And so then, some light bulbs started going off and we started digging into it. And lo and behold, when Virgin Atlantic previously charged at least 47,500 points and about $1,000 in taxes and fees, you could now book flights from Boston, New York, Washington, D.C., even Atlanta to London for as little as 29,000 points and just 250 some dollars in taxes and fees. This was alarm bells, full on alarm bells. And so within about 30 minutes, you and John and Peter and the others on our team had gotten together a deal to send to our premium members. And I'm on that list. I'm not above getting high on our own supply. I do it all the time. I did follow the deal here. So we got that deal out. And about 5 minutes later, I booked flights for my wife and I to get there, departing in late August of this year. And I think about 7 others on our team also booked this deal. We got the deal out first, and then the rest of us got really selfish in a hurry, and I was one of them.
That's awesome. So I actually, sadly, was not working that day, so I was following along on Slack as you guys were all booking this deal, and I missed out on. I was traveling. I don't remember where, but I was on the road and was not able to book the Virgin deal. But it seems like everyone else is gonna take that flight at some point here this year. So what points did you use? Exactly how many did you use to nail these things down?
The real magic of this was not just that this deal was suddenly so much cheaper to fly business class from the East Coast to Europe, but also that there was a record-setting transfer bonus available. So at the time, in October, there was a transfer bonus from Chase to Virgin Atlantic for 40%, which meant that we only had to transfer 21,000 points each, plus that 250 some in taxes and fees a ticket, which is not nothing. But again, that is a quarter of what Virgin Atlantic used to charge. So I will say this was the first time in, I don't know, probably 3, 4, maybe even 5 years that I had used Chase points to book a flight. I had typically been saving them for Hyatt. But with a 40% bonus, it was an absolute no brainer to be able to book 2 business class tickets for a total of 42,000 points and just over $500.
Oh, God, it's such a good booking. I'm very jealous. I've spent that many points on way, way dumber things and way worse flights. So that's going to be a really, really fun trip once you pull it off. So let's finish the flights first, as is our rule here at Thrifty Traveler. Flights first rule. How are you getting home?
We looked into a couple of different things. The taxes, especially flying business class departing London, are just really rough. And I just didn't have it in me to pay, $400 or $500 a ticket or more. Also considered kind of making at least a connection through Dublin. So flying from, say, London to Dublin and then home somewhere. Also wasn't really into it. A lot of the award space that was available at the time would have put us through the East Coast, and I was just really eager to get home. And at the end of the day, there's really nothing wrong with using your points to book economy, especially when it's a nonstop flight. So in this case, there was award space to, again, use Virgin Atlantic points, fly from London straight home to Minneapolis. It's a daytime flight. We're not flying overnight to get home from Europe. So I don't know that we really want to sleep anyway. Might grab a quick nap, though. For me, that's probably going to be about 5 minutes, but it doesn't matter because it only cost us 17,500 Virgin points each, and about 240 in taxes, which is a little tough to swallow. But the sweetener there was that after that 40% transfer bonus from Chase to Virgin, there was an identical 40% transfer bonus from American Express to Virgin. So we transferred just 14,000 points apiece to Virgin, and then booked those tickets home. Getting straight home after a 10-day trip, I feel great about it.
Yeah, that's a smart move. Business class is just a mindset anyway, right? 3 red wines, an eye mask, and a turtle pillow, and you're never going to know the difference.
The Thirsty Traveler podcast is back. All right, 3 red wines in economy. You tell me how it goes when you try to flag down a flight attendant and ask for 3 red wines. And if you ask for 3 at one time, I want video footage.
I'm putting a hole in that flight attendant call button about 14 minutes into the flight. All right. So you're not just going to London. You're also planning to go up to Scotland. How are you getting in between those 2 places?
Yeah, we're so trying to plan out how to divide up this trip because there are a handful of places that we want to hit. We of course want to spend some time in Edinburgh. Like I mentioned, we want to get to the place where my wife studied. We want to hit up some coastal towns in kind of northern England, and then of course spend some time in London too. So what we decided to do is, right when we land in London, connect straight up to Edinburgh. And I'll be honest, as we're talking right now, I haven't booked those flights yet. We're still a handful of months out. I'm not too worried. I've got a Google Flights price alert set. I'm going to continue, just kind of hoping that prices come down a little bit and book that. If they don't, I'll figure out a way to book that flight using some miles. Going to be just fine. From there, we're going to spend some time in Edinburgh, of course, but then we're also going to drive out kind of into the Highlands, and in particular, go to Oban on the kind of western coast of Scotland, which I'm really, really excited for. And then we're going to rent a car. We're going to drive from Edinburgh down the coast to that town where my wife studied, which is called Alnwick, spelled Alnwick. It's a real study in how the Brits pronounce things, and that L's are typically silent. And then this was a really weird one. It was oddly maybe the thing I'm proudest of, and how we put this together is, we talked about doing a day trip to Alnwick and hitting up some of those coastal towns, but it would have felt really tight. And then we would have had to drive all the way back to Edinburgh, which is like 2.5, 3 hours. And then you're spending 6 hours in the car that day. And so I looked into, well, could we, drive all the way to Newcastle and then fly from Newcastle back to London? I mean, it's like a 9-hour train ride, but an hour by plane. And the flight prices were just really gross. I mean, like $500 a ticket one way. I was like, oh, I just really wish that this was a better deal and it would make the trip so much more convenient. And in my head, I told myself, well, if these tickets are $500 a piece flying British Airways, there's no way that I can book this with miles. That's what we see. When ticket prices go up, airlines pull award inventory that you can actually book with miles. But I took a flyer on it. I booted up BA.com. I searched for that flight, and go figure, that $500 flight was bookable for under 10,000 British Airways Avios, which you can transfer from all of the major banks like Chase, American Express, Capital One, 9,750 Avios, and $1 in taxes and fees, because British Airways has this really cool system where you can kick in a little bit more miles in order to bring down the taxes and fees that you pay. And so that to spend less than 20,000 points and $2 to book what would have been $1,000 in airfare and really make the trip make a lot more sense and more efficient was really, really cool.
That's awesome. That's a great booking as well. It's also cool to just go see another airport too. Maybe that's nerdy of me to say, but I just got to wonder what the Newcastle airport is like. But that is a clean booking as well. So as we know, with all trips, you have the big things, but let's talk about all the things in between: lodging, trains, cars. How are you getting around? Where are you going to stay?
Like I said, we really do kind of need a car in order to avoid spending 9 to 12 hours on a train getting out to the Highlands and then, down to Newcastle and Alnwick. And I have really come around on renting a car. I think if you asked me 5 years ago, I would have said, I just really like to avoid renting a car unless if I absolutely have to. Just the freedom of being able to go where you need to go to set your own schedule versus being tethered to train schedules or, driver schedules or whatever. And I've also had a weird amount of experience of driving on the left side of the road. In the past 2 years alone, we've done trips and rented cars in both New Zealand and South Africa, both which use the British driving model. So I'm, that first New Zealand trip was the first time I had driven on the left side of the road, and I got about 2 or 3 blocks from the airport, and my wife was like, "You are about to sideswipe a car. You got to move over. It's a little too close." And now I feel pretty comfortable about it. I do still end up hitting the wipers instead of the blinker without fail, like 20 times. But if that's my biggest issue, I'm fine. So anyway, long-winded way of saying we're renting a car. The only thing that I do now when I need to rent a car is I go to AutoSlash.com. The amount of money that I have saved when renting a car from AutoSlash, not just because it pulls in rates from the main rental car agencies as well as online travel agencies, which is huge, but most importantly, it allows you to track the price of the rental. So as long as you're booking a refundable rate through whoever you book through, AutoSlash will continue to track it and then send you an email, just like Google Flights price alerts, where if the price of that rental has dropped, you can just go back and rebook it, and you're going to save a ton. So just as an example, years ago, I was out with family in Hawaii, and we booked a rental car on the Big Island, Kona. And I booked through AutoSlash, and I got an email 2 or 3 weeks before we actually flew out to Hawaii for this trip that our rental had dropped by $280. I save $280 within about 2 clicks. So that is my go-to every time. I'm still waiting for one of those emails to come in from AutoSlash, but I'm feeling good. I've got my fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's AutoSlash.com. Awesome tool. That was kind of revelatory for me when I found out about AutoSlash. It is a really, really great travel tool out there and totally free. Tell me about where you're staying.
Yeah, first stop is Edinburgh. I booked 2 nights there at the DoubleTree, which is an amazing location right in the shadow of the castle. Booked 1 night with cash, a little bit steep. I think it ends up being a $320 or so for a night, which is a little tough to swallow. I'm hoping that rate is going to come down. I'm going to keep an eye on it. And then the other night I booked with 60,000 Hilton Honors points, which is not the best redemption in the world. It's certainly not. Hilton is a little bit tough to get good value from these kind of mid-tier properties like that. But it was better than spending another $325 or more for that second night that we need there. From there, we're heading out to the Highlands, staying around Oban, and on the flip side of where the value is not so good with Hilton, the value is so great with their SLH, Small Luxury Hotels of the World program. And there's an awesome looking property called the Isle of Eriska. I don't know about the pronunciation. All I know is that it is a castle that has been converted into an inn. I am super excited. We booked 2 nights there for 90,000 Hilton points apiece. Since we booked it, it has unfortunately fallen victim to one of Hilton's many devaluations, where Hilton has increased award rates at some of their best properties, especially some of the really good SLH properties. So it now costs 100,000 points a night. Not terrible for an increase. I would still gladly book that property for 100,000 points from Hilton, just because those points are so easy to earn. But I'm really looking forward to this one. That's going to be really cool.
Yeah, that looks like a really special spot as well. And anything in a castle is probably going to be worth your Hilton Honors points.
That's worth at least 100,000 points alone. It's just to say you slept in a castle.
Yeah, exactly. All right, where are you staying in Anik? Did I pronounce that correctly?
Nailed it. Yeah, we're after Edinburgh and the Highlands, we're driving down the coast and eventually making our way to Anik, where we found this really great brand new. It actually, as we're talking right now, and as this episode comes out, it hasn't even opened yet. A brand new boutique hotel called the Bailiff Gate Hotel, and this is where credit card statement credits really shine, because you know, with things like the Capital One Venture X, which has a $300 travel credit, you have to book through a travel portal, which can be a little bit of a bummer. You know, we always tell people book direct whenever you can, especially for hotel chains, where if you have elite status or you want to earn points, you know, you need to book direct through that hotel chain program. Not an issue here. So to be able to book a $285 really nice looking boutique hotel in the small town of Anik, right where we want to be, use up most of that $300 annual credit, offset basically all of the Venture X cards $395 annual fee with 1 night in a hotel. I'm really excited for that one as well.
Yeah, that'll be really cool. What about London? You're finishing up your stay there. Where are you going to stay in the great city of London?
The amount of time that I spent going back and forth about where we should stay, and let me say, if I haven't made it clear already, this is my first time entering the country of England. I have connected through the Heathrow Airport like 4 or 5 times. I have never actually been to England. And you would think with my name, I have been there all the time. I really should have been. I should have been there years ago. Like I said, the flight deals have brought me and my wife elsewhere. So we went back and forth between a handful of different, properties. And do we stay at a really nice property, or do we kind of focus more on location? And we decided to focus a little bit more on the location of where we wanted to be in order to see the sites we want to see and do the things we want to do. And so what we landed on was the Great Scotland Yard Hotel, which is a Hyatt property. So we booked that for 4 nights, and some of the nights were 25,000 points a piece. Some of them were 30,000. So I forget exactly how many points that costs. It was a lot. It was a lot of the chase points that my wife and I have. But again, this is a very special trip that has been a long time coming. So this is what points are for, to have special experiences. And, it was really easy to justify the vast majority of the chase points that we have, forking them over to end our stay in London in the place that we want to be.
Yeah, I know that hotel is right in the heart of things and super close to the tube. You can get to just about anything that you want to see in London from that spot. And those aren't terrible rates either, a little steep, but that's you're gonna really love that spot. Um, Besides all the logistics can be fun in their own right, but that's not the fun stuff. What are you looking forward to actually doing on this trip? What are you most excited about?
I mean, I think the thing that I'm truly most excited about is going to Anik. Like I said, this is something my wife and I have been talking about for more than a decade. And this was a really formative experience for her. So just seeing where she studied and, the town that she lived in for 3 or 4 months is going to be really cool for me personally. It's also the castle of Anik is the castle that was featured in the first Harry Potter movie, The Sorcerer's Stone. Specifically, the scene where they filmed the first Quidditch lessons. That is outside Anik Castle. So I'm not nearly as much as a HP nerd as I used to be when I was a kid growing up and would read every single book from the hours of midnight until 7 a.m. each night that they came out. That's not me anymore. I'm a different man now. I'm a man now. I'm not a boy. But no, I'm really really excited to visit Anik with my wife and kind of see some of the things that she saw and did when she was there a long time ago now. Out in the Scottish Highlands, going to the Oban distillery, one of my favorite Scotch manufacturers, to be able to go there for a tour and a tasting. I'm really, really excited for that one. It's also the small things though. And, to me, what I really want most out of a trip to England is just going to pubs. And in particular, a small kind of countryside pub in a small town. That to me is really kind of synonymous with England in my head, and that is when I think about a trip to England, that is what I envision. So I'm really excited to just find a pub on our drive somewhere and pop in for some fish and chips and a pint and just kind of soak it in.
That's amazing. That's the part of England and Scotland that is just so exciting. It's just like every little town has something fun like that and a great pub to sit at, and spending an hour or a few hours at a place like that would be a great use of an afternoon. Anything else that you're looking forward to on this trip?
Well, now is when I need your advice because you have what in the office is a legendary story about going to I think a Premier League game. Maybe it was a Championship League game, but whichever it was, let us know and let us know how that experience was from you and what I can learn from.
All right. I knew this story would come out on the pod at some point. So I flew one of the first ever Norse Atlantic flights over to London for work. I reviewed the flights there and back. I flew their premium economy and their economy. And my trip just so happened to happen 2 days after the Queen died. And it was my first time in London as well. So I was really excited to kind of make the most of it. And I booked, I went on StubHub and I grabbed a ticket to a Champions League game. It was Chelsea and Red Bull Salzburg. The Salzburg fans, by the way, did not care that the Queen had died. They were very rowdy. I was sitting right next to them. But anyway, so the story goes: one, buying tickets on StubHub, not legal there. So when I got to the gate, the ticket had someone else's name on it. And luckily there was such a rush of people that they just scanned the ticket and pushed me through. But I was reading online right beforehand being like, yeah, they're not going to let you in unless your ID matches your ticket name. So go through the official channels if you want to buy a ticket. I got lucky, I think. But anyway, I get inside the stadium and I'm a bit of a soccer fan, not a major soccer fan, but I know like.
Hang on. It's football. Come on. We're talking about the Champion League. We're talking about the Premier League. Come on.
It's still soccer for me. I'm sorry to say, but I get there and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna get 2 beers right away and bring them in for the first half. I don't want to be the fan that's getting up in the middle of everything. I don't want to be disruptive. Like I want to blend in here. I want to be a real football fan. So I grabbed my 2 beers. I was getting some weird looks, and I walk up to the gate usher who sees me walking down the hallway and just starts laughing immediately. And when I get up to him with 2 beers in my hand, he goes, "Oh, you American?" I was like, I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "You can't bring beers in here. There's a rule in England. You're not allowed to have alcohol in view of the pitch, at least in the section that I was sitting in." So I'm sitting there. They're laying wreaths onto the field to commemorate the Queen, and I am chugging my 2 beers as fast as I can with less than 2 minutes to go until game time, as the gate usher in a like hushed tone chants USA, USA, so as not to be disrespectful in front of the Queen's ceremony there at Stamford Bridge. But I pounded both beers and went and sat in my seat. And yeah, it was one of the coolest experiences of my life, though. Just like going to international football games is, in the US, we're so used to pro sports where the announcer is screaming at you the whole time. It's third down. Get loud. It's a power play. And in England, it's just the fans. You hear just the fans and the whistles the whole game. And it is beautiful. There's no video boards. There's no nothing. It's just an analog clock and one little video scoreboard that just has two numbers and two logos on it. And it's like lo-fi sports, but with just so much energy and passion. And it was very cool. It was one of my favorite sporting moments that I could ever remember. And I was sitting right next to the Red Bull Salzburg fans who looked like they wanted to start an absolute riot. And I was about to join them. It looked like a lot of fun over on their side of the fence.
Well, you had 2 beers in you, so why didn't you?
My 2 beers at halftime went down smooth too.
So the takeaways here are: don't buy tickets on StubHub, buy direct from the team or the league. And I'm not sure what the takeaway here is in regards to beers. Honestly, what your experience sounds like the ideal one. And it's funny, you told us this story when you came back, and this was years ago now, and I don't know if I just missed or I had forgotten the element of they were honoring the Queen while this was all happening, and just like the juxtaposition of you chugging beers and the usher cheering you on USA, USA while all of this is happening in the background. That's a good one. We're gonna clip this one for social media for sure.
It's probably too long for social media, but I love that story. It was one of the funniest travel mistakes, issues, days, nights of my life, and very, very fun one. So I hope you have 10 times as much fun as that on your trip, Kyle. But it sounds like an awesome one.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it. No promises about the 2 beers at the Premier League or Championship game. We'll see. All
right, let's help a listener out here. We have a listener named Kevin who submitted his question of the week. He asks, I noticed that the Concorde is the centerpiece of the Thrifty Traveler podcast set. You're absolutely right, Kevin. It's right here if you're watching on YouTube. Just wondering if anyone on the TT team has flown on the Concorde. Let's answer that question first. I don't think so. We thought that maybe our coworker Peter Thornton, who has apparently done everything in the world of travel, in the world of points and miles. And we were wondering if Peter had been on the Concorde, but he said, alas, he had not. I was surprised to hear that.
We just asked to confirm before we started recording this show whether Peter had done it, because if anybody had, it would be Peter. And Peter told us no, which was a little bit of a surprise. I'm a little bit disappointed that he hadn't said like, oh yeah, no, I worked 2 rotations on the Concorde, in 1994 or whatever, because that would have been just the most classic Peter story. But no, nobody on our team has flown on the Concorde, unfortunately.
This Concorde on our set, though, Kyle, you built this with your bare hands, right?
I built it with my bare hands, with all of the skill, or maybe less of the skill, of a 8-year-old building Legos, which is what this is made of.
I love this Concorde on our set. It's an integral part of this set and an integral part of our next set, which we're building right now. You'll see that one in the coming weeks as well. The last part of Kevin's question is also, do you think Boom Supersonic will ever enter commercial service? Boom Supersonic is working on another kind of version of this plane, or a version of supersonic travel that maybe promises to be comfier or something like that. But what do you know about them? What do you think about their viability, Kyle?
No.
You don't think so?
No.
I think they've put so much money into this. I think they're going to try and force something out into the market. But I don't know. I'm not a supersonic expert. I'm not an av geek insofar as knowing things about plane types and things like that. And I don't know if there are people out there who want this. I don't think I do, especially if it's way more expensive. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest challenge, there are a lot of challenges. First of all, finding an engine to make this plane supersonic and, something that they can manufacture. But maybe the bigger challenge is finding a market to make this work, because there's no way to do this in a way that is palatable to American travelers' wallets. The last 2, 3, 4 decades of American travel says that we care about one thing above all else, which is a good price. And I don't currently see a way for this to be economical in a way that people are going to be able to justify paying drastically more in order to get to London in, like 3 or 4 hours instead of 5 or 6 from the East Coast. Not to mention, you can only do it from the East Coast to, nearer parts of Western Europe. It's very, very questionable at this point whether you can do it from the Western United States to Asia or certainly Australia. I think that's out of the question. So how do you make this work and how do you scale it? I don't see it right now. I would love to be proven wrong, but I'm just going to go back to my original answer. No.
I think that answer's right. If you want us to answer your question, email us at podcast@thriftytraveler.com, and your question might be featured in next week's show. All right, Kyle, it is my turn to put you on the spot. All right, this is a thinker. This England-Scotland trip that you booked and you told us all about is a retread. It's a trip you had to postpone in the past. Do you have any other trips that you had to cancel or that hit the cutting room floor or anything that you'd love a redo on at some point in the future?
Kind of. The answer is kind of. So when the world really shut down in early to mid March of 2020, my wife and I did what apparently every single American in the country did, which is we panic booked a flight for around Memorial Day of 2020, because the idea was this is only going to last a month, maybe 2, this new coronavirus pandemic, and we're going to want somewhere to go. And it's so funny that if you go look at Google Trends, which allows you to look at, search volume traffic of specific terms, and you look at it over, a 5 or 6 year horizon, if you search for the term cheap flights, there is an absolute peak. It just goes straight up in mid-March. So this is what my wife and I did. We just looked for a cheap trip that we could book to have somewhere to go in late May. And what we ended up booking was a flight to Miami, which I've never actually spent time in Miami. I'm not sure if my wife has. I'll have to ask her. But we got to, even by the time we got to basically April, it was clear that this was not going to happen. So we've never been back. We've since connected through Miami a handful of times, but it's only been, a positioning flight to get to our friend's wedding in Italy the next year, to get back from our safari trip that we talked about in a previous episode. I'll be honest, I'm not in a real hurry to get to Miami and actually spend some time there. Nothing against our listeners in Miami, all one of you. I'll get there eventually. It's just not super, super high on my wish list.
Yeah, I think a lot of trips hit the cutting room floor that month as well. I'm going to share mine with you because I came up with one. It's actually more than one. It's almost every year, a few times a year, I try and go chase snowstorms to go ski. I love skiing powder, and I just loved chasing a massive snowstorm and getting there for big powder days. And so every year I end up booking at the last minute and then dumping, a few trips a year just based on watching the weather, which we do religiously. And this year I actually booked way out in advance MLK weekend in Salt Lake City. And we had just been traveling, and we were traveling the next weekend, and I had this trip booked to go to Salt Lake, and the weather forecast was not good. It was freezing cold and there was no snow. And I was like, you know what, I'm getting rid of this. And I dumped it. And I woke up on Saturday morning to an alert that 20 inches of snow had fallen overnight at Snowbird. And then the next day I woke up on Sunday morning and 20 more inches had fallen out of the sky the next morning.
Oh, my heart hurts for you, buddy.
I think we had a dinner party that weekend with my wife and some of her friends, and I was just so down in the dumps, just real poopy pants, real pouty face the whole time. I was the saddest boy you've ever seen that weekend. But I've had so many ski trips hit the cutting room floor that I wish I could have a redo on. But there's always next time. There's always that next chase.
There will be more snow. I feel like we can say that.
I hope so. All right, that's going to be it for us. Thank you for listening to the Thrifty Traveler podcast. Go please rate us 5 stars on your podcast platform of choice, and then like and subscribe to Thrifty Traveler on YouTube. The show's a lot of fun over there, I promise. And then send this episode to somebody you know who wants to go to England and Scotland using their points and miles. Kyle just gave you a pretty good blueprint to pull something like that off. If you have feedback for us, send me a note, podcast@thriftytraveler.com. We would love to hear from you there as well. Kyle, tell us about the TT podcast team.
This episode was produced by our senior editor, Jackson Newman, and your favorite red-blooded, beer-chugging American podcast host, Gunnar Olsen, who definitely did not disrespect the late Queen. And it was edited by David Strutt. Our theme music is by Benjamin Tissot. See you next week.
See ya.